At 64, Meg Ryan breaks silence on affair with Russell Crowe. She was America's sweetheart. The woman whose smile could sell a movie, whose name alone could open a film on its opening weekend. And then, in the space of one summer, everything changed. A marriage unraveled. A scandal exploded. And Meg Ryan went from the most beloved actress in Hollywood to the most talked about woman in the tabloids. Now, at 64, she is finally telling the world the truth, and it is not the story most people think they know. The rise. At some point in the 1990s, Meg Ryan was simply untouchable. She was the face of the romantic comedy, the actress who could make audiences laugh, cry, and believe in love all within the same 2 hours. Born Margaret Hyra on November 19, 1961, in Fairfield, Connecticut, she took her mother's maiden name as her stage name and transferred her ambitions from the University of Connecticut to New York University, leaving 1 semester short of graduating to chase acting. That risk paid off on a scale few could have imagined. Her early years on the soap opera As the World Turns gave her the craft. Her supporting role in Top Gun in 1986 gave her visibility. But it was 1989 that gave her immortality. When Harry Met Sally made Meg Ryan a star, a Golden Globe-nominated performance that audiences have never forgotten. What followed was a decade of dominance. When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, French Kiss, and You've Got Mail together grossed over $670 million worldwide. She worked with Tom Hanks twice. Their chemistry became the gold standard for on-screen romance. She proved her dramatic range in When a Man Loves a Woman and earned a SAG Award nomination for the effort. By 2000, she was commanding $15 million per film, a salary that put her in the same bracket as the biggest male stars in the business. She was offered Clarice Starling in The Silence of the Lambs and turned it down. Jodie Foster took the role and won an Oscar. But Ryan had no regrets. She knew exactly what she was building, and she built it brilliantly. The trouble, as it turned out, was building behind the scenes. The marriage that was already over. Before Russell Crowe, there was Dennis Quaid. The two first met on the set of Interspace in 1987 and fell into a relationship while filming DOA a year later. They married on Valentine's Day in 1991. Their son Jack was born in April 1992, and he has since become a star in his own right, appearing in Scream, Oppenheimer, and the long-running series The Boys, in which he continues to earn acclaim as of 2025. But the marriage was fragile from the beginning. Quaid had struggled with substance addiction and entered rehab before the wedding. In a 2024 interview, he reflected honestly on what it felt like as Ryan's fame eclipsed his own. He admitted he tried to tell himself it did not bother him, but people are human, and her ascending career while he was in rehab left a mark. He called Ryan a great person who deserved every bit of her success, but acknowledged that navigating the imbalance was quietly painful. The couple announced their separation in June 2000. Ryan was careful in how she framed it publicly, telling W magazine that their marriage had dissolved long before the press ever tuned in. But it was what she later revealed that changed everything. In 2008, speaking to InStyle, she disclosed something she had held back for years, that Dennis had not been faithful to her for a long time, and that she had found out more about the extent of it only after the divorce was finalized. She said it was a great story for the tabloids, but what was never in the story was the reality of her marriage. The picture that emerged, slowly and across many years, was of a relationship that had been effectively over for a long time before anyone outside knew it. Russell Crowe and the scandal. They met in 2000 on the set of Proof of Life, an action thriller in which Crowe played a hostage negotiator and Ryan played the wife of a kidnapping victim. The plot required their characters to develop a romantic tension. Behind the camera, that tension was real. By July 2000, they were photographed leaving Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible 2 premiere party together. The tabloids did not need much more than that. Suddenly, America's sweetheart was a home wrecker. The story was irresistible and almost entirely misleading. Friends described the connection as intense and consuming. One told People magazine that they seemed completely crazy about each other, that he called her constantly and they emailed each other constantly. Another described Ryan as extremely infatuated. Crowe, for his part, reportedly wanted more than a romance. An insider told People he wanted to marry Ryan and have children with her. He gave her gifts: a 1963 Buick antique car, a puppy. Ryan, who had just lived through a painful divorce, found it overwhelming. It was too much too soon. The late Carrie Fisher, one of Ryan's closest friends, spoke about Crowe to people with characteristic wit. She called him a tough thing to resist, and joked that she was glad a friend got him since she could not. The relationship lasted less than a year. By December 2000, they were on separate continents for the holidays. Crowe later told a Sydney newspaper that he could not sustain himself through a year without going home, and that Ryan needed the same. Geography, intensity, and timing all worked against them. What they left behind, however, was a public relations catastrophe, at least for Ryan. The film's director, Taylor Hackford, told reporters he was deeply hurt that both stars refused to do press for proof of life, not wanting to answer questions about their personal lives. He believed their silence cost the film at the box office. The movie grossed far below expectations, and Ryan's image, so carefully constructed over a decade, had taken a hit it would take years to process. Despite the breakup, Crowe has spoken about Ryan with genuine warmth. He told a reporter that she was a beautiful and courageous woman, and that while he grieved the loss of her companionship, he had not lost her friendship. What Meg has said, and what she means. For a long time, Ryan said very little. She denied, deflected, and moved on. But across a series of interviews over the past 2 decades, the full picture has emerged, and it is more nuanced than any tabloid ever captured. She has been clear on the central question: Russell Crowe did not end her marriage. Speaking publicly, she said that Russell did not break up the marriage. He was definitely there at the end, but it was not his fault. She added that she was a mess at that point, and that she hurt him too. She said she could not be in another long relationship at that time, so she got out. In a 2019 interview with the New York Times, she described a shift that happened during that period. She said she remembered letting go of needing to correct anybody. And in a conversation with The Guardian, she recalled a moment in the lobby of a London hotel when the entire room stopped and stared at her. Instead of falling apart, she got into the elevator and started laughing. She realized that public disapproval had no power over someone who knew themselves. She called the experience of being labeled a scarlet woman incredibly liberating, as painful as it was. She no longer had to manage an image. She no longer had to care what people thought. That, she has said, was a real gift. The long road back. The years that followed were not kind. A notorious 2003 interview with British talk show host Michael Parkinson became a cultural flashpoint. Ryan was promoting her erotic thriller In the Cut, a deliberate departure from her wholesome image, and Parkinson questioned her choices aggressively, implying her personal life had driven her to darker material. Ryan grew visibly uncomfortable and eventually shut the interview down. Parkinson called her behavior unforgivable at the time. In 2021, he reversed course, telling Radio Times that he came across as pompous and wished he had handled it with more courtesy. He said simply, "I'm sorry." In the Cut was a commercial disappointment. So was Against the Ropes. Ryan stepped back from Hollywood entirely, telling the New York Times Magazine that she felt burned out and like she was watching her life through a window. Her return came in 2023, with What Happens Later, a romantic comedy she co-wrote and directed, starring alongside David Duchovny. It was a modest film, but it was hers, made on her own terms. She told People magazine she took her long break because there were so many other parts of her life as a human being she wanted to develop. In 2025, she stepped back into the spotlight in a more visible way, attending the Academy Awards alongside her When Harry Met Sally co-star Billy Crystal to present Best Picture in honor of the film's anniversary. She also appeared at the 2026 Oscars to pay tribute to the late director Rob Reiner, who passed away in December 2025, a deeply personal moment, given that Reiner had directed the film that made her a star. Sources close to Ryan describe her as genuinely content, focused on her philanthropy through the organization Care, her daughter Daisy, whom she adopted from China, and a quiet life she built on her own terms after everything that fell apart. At 64, Meg Ryan is no longer interested in managing her image. She has said as much, in one interview after another. She said that with age, you reach a place where you say what you mean without worrying about how it is going to land. She told the Sunday Times when asked about persistent plastic surgery rumors to simply move on. She told Glamour that meanness and hatred are just so unnecessary, and that there are far more interesting things to think about. The affair with Russell Crowe did not destroy her. It freed her. And the woman who spent a decade being America's sweetheart seems, finally, at peace with the woman she actually is.